Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Gayani with Inventive Mind. Today I have another interview with a guest, Shannon Finley. She is actually an employment law attorney in California with a mid-sized firm. And she's going to answer some questions for employers out there who may have questions. Well, we're going to give some tips, not really questions, tips. And for the employers out there that are kind of dealing with this current situation, we are now in April 2020. There's the COVID-19 shutdowns and shelter-in-place orders, and there's a lot of changes to the employee side of law. So there's lots going on. So she had agreed to join me for a little bit to just kind of give some tips. Just keep in mind that it's for informational purposes only, and that, if you have any specific questions, please seek out an attorney in your area that is qualified to answer these questions. And as far as Shannon's information, I'm going to put it down below so you could connect with her directly if you want to seek a consultation. Again, thank you for joining me. I'm Gayani, and I actually do not this area of law. I do business law and intellectual property, but the business law means transactional part. So like contracts and creating LLCs, corporations. So I do have some understanding about the employment law a little bit because I was in-house, and that when you're in-house at a corporation, you had to kind of handle a lot of different things. So with that, I will introduce Shannon. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I will ask you to introduce a little bit more about yourself and the firm. And I know Shannon been practicing now for about 7 years, and she's a partner at Petticorn, which is a firm in California, I believe. But I will ask her to explain.
Great. So, hi everyone. I'm Shannon Finley. I'm a shareholder at Pettit, Cohn and Gracia, Lutz and Dolan. I work in our San Diego office, which is our largest and first office. And then we do have some satellite offices in Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Tucson. We have about 40 attorneys. Not all of them do employment, but that's what my focus is. And my job really has two different parts. So on one side, I'm a litigator. So I am handling litigation cases involving employment issues, which is everything from sexual harassment, wrongful termination, retaliation, discrimination for single plaintiff or more, to class actions, PAGA cases, collective actions for employment, including wage and hour cases. So I have a pretty broad area of practice for litigation. And then the other half of my job is counseling. So for counseling, that's things like helping small business owners answer questions about how to run their business, what policies should be in place, best practices, and to help them be compliant with the law.
Thank you, Sharon. That's a lot of different areas. So, before we get into some of what we're going to discuss today, I would like to ask, what inspired you to go into employment law area?
That's a great question. In law school, I really enjoyed constitutional law classes, including discrimination. I started taking employment law classes. I did employment law for the Attorney General's office as an internship. And my first job was working for a federal judge. And in that capacity as a clerk, I got to work on a broad range of different types of cases. And I just found myself really enjoying the employment cases because the law is changing all the time, which I enjoy. So I think it's intellectually challenging to keep up with everything. And at its core, it's really about people, and I really love people, and I get to talk to my clients and work with them really closely and have long-term relationships with them because we help them for litigation and counseling. So I would say that's why I was interested in employment, and I have no reservations. I still love it.
That's awesome. I think because given that there's so many different areas of law, one of the things I'm trying to do with this series of interviews is also to bring in people, attorneys who are practicing in those different areas to kind of explain what they do and the differences, because like I recently had an interview with Rafael Hurtado, who is also does employment law, but he does it from the employee side, and you are doing it from more of the employer side. So there's differences, and there's litigation, there's transactional attorney. So I think it's great that we are opening it up and kind of discussing this, because people don't always get to know that there's so many different specialties, and that employment law person probably wouldn't want to answer any questions about family law or like intellectual property, or sometimes there's overlaps, but sometimes you have very separate silos. So with that, so are you working remotely, or are you going into office at all, because legal is considered essential? So
So while we are essential, especially because we're helping our clients be compliant with all of the new laws surrounding the pandemic, our office is almost entirely remote. Um, and that was just a personal choice. A lot of our employees felt more comfortable working remotely, especially if they were in a high risk category. So
mhm.
we're a fully remote office right now.
That's great. And I do know that like as far as San Diego courts, they are limited function right now, correct? Like only emergency. So
That's
none of
correct.
the
So for people who are civil litigators like me, you really can't do anything. It's essentially closed. But what's interesting is we still have trial dates that are coming up. It'll probably get moved, but you don't know that
yeah.
100%. So for those cases, we have to proceed as usual.
Oh wow. And is are you able to file any new cases right now? Oh no. With the civil cases being like the docket being kind of
Sure. I
off.
think it depends on which county. Some counties
Okay.
have e-filing, so they're still accepting filings. So we had a responsive pleading that we
Mm-hmm.
filed recently. Um, so I would say it probably varies statewide. And, this is just a very fluid situation for everybody.
Exactly. And thank you so much for willing to answer some, give some tips. So I will just let you take over and talk about some of like the 5 tips that you kind of want to share with the employers out there that are either small or big or medium, depending on, what their sizes are. If you could kind of give a little bit of information on that, what that applies to a small or as big or medium size, that would really help too.
Great. So my first tip would be that while more people are working remotely, you have to be really careful about wage and hour issues. So if someone is an exempt employee and they work at any time during that week, they're entitled to their full salary. And if someone is an hourly employee, you need to make sure that you're accurately having them record their time worked, making sure they're recording their lunches that they're entitled to, and make sure that they're taking their breaks that they're entitled to. And those records are going to be important down the road if you're involved in any type of wage and hour litigation. But especially with remote employees, it is a way that the company can increase its exposure if it's not careful about making sure it has those policies and procedures in place.
If they didn't have some kind of a remote work from home policy, uh, are you seeing some of your clients coming to ask for those policies right now?
Absolutely. There's some in companies who are really having to adjust their operations a lot because it's a very different business world that we're operating in at the moment. So I think this is a time when a lot of companies are realizing that they need to have better remote policies. And this is a good opportunity to solidify those right now.
That's really the key, right? Like Otherwise, also like employees who are working hourly, probably they still get overtime or any weekend work time? Do they have to worry about that too?
Absolutely. So if you have employees who are working remotely, especially if they're hourly, if they're answering emails in the evening but not clocked in at that time, that can be a reason why you may have liability down the road. So it's just very important that they accurately clock in and clock out. And that might include a lot of extra breaks during the day if they're helping kids
Mm-hmm.
with school, if they're changing out the laundry, putting lunch together for themselves. So if your program only allows you to have a certain number of clock in, clock outs a day, then you need to make sure your program can have extra ones so that employees are accurately tracking their time.
That's great. So let's go to the second tip that you wanted to share.
Sure. So my second tip is that California law, specifically Labor Code 2802, requires employers to reimburse employees for necessary business expenses. And those are something that remote employees have that maybe they wouldn't have in the normal workplace. So, for example, if an employee is using their personal cell phone for work calls all day,
Mm-hmm.
then they would be required to provide a reasonable amount to
Accommodations.
reimburse them for that use. Exactly.
Oh,
And
okay.
that under California law, there's an appellate court case called Cochran that
Okay.
applies even if someone has an unlimited plan and they aren't actually paying anything extra for using those cell phone minutes, you're still
Okay.
required to reimburse them a reasonable amount.
Okay. If they want to find out that kind of information, where would they go, by the way, to see,
Sure,
or do they have to see, do a consultation with the employment attorney like you?
absolutely. They can always consult an employment attorney, and our firm's website also has a special coronavirus page with
Okay.
explanations of all the legal updates and new laws that are coming out. So that's a good resource.
I will actually put the tag on that when I put this video together. So anybody who's watching this wanted to know, I will put a link below the video for that blog. Okay, so let's go to number three then.
Sure. So, my next tip is that the new federal law called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was signed by President Trump on March 18th, 2020, went into
Mhm.
effect yesterday, April 1st, 2020. And it does provide extra paid sick leave for employees for 10 days of work. And that would be in addition to California's state requirement for paid sick leave. So it's important for employers to keep that in mind.
Okay. So, and then those, I know that when I spoke with Raphael, he mentioned something similar too. And those, you cannot change those vacation times now, right? Like retroactively, like reduce anything just so you could adjust. These are on top of what is already available for the employees, correct?
Exactly. So if employees have already accrued other benefits, vacation, PTO, California paid sick leave, they're still entitled to that. So this is a new additional requirement for private employers with 500 or fewer employees.
Wow. That's really necessary, I think, at this time, because there are people who are getting sick and there are people who had to take care of the people who are getting sick. There's a lot of different things going on. Um, so let's. What is your number four tip? Tip number four.
So my number 4 tip is that the same law, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also includes a provision that expands the Family Medical Leave Act. So there is an emergency family medical leave expansion. that provides additional paid leave for employees who are at home and cannot work either in person or work remotely because they need to take care of children who are home from school or daycare because it was closed because of the pandemic.
Okay. So that's the expansion. So what was in place before that? I'm just curious, as a
Sure.
person who not practicing in this area of law.
Right. So the FMLA has been a federal law we've had with us for quite a while, and that provides leave that's unpaid to employees for either their own serious medical condition or if they're taking care of a family member's serious medical condition, like a child.
Okay. And with those kind of paid leave, it's had to be somebody related to you, or can it be like it's one of your friends or somebody, or does it have to be just a
That's a good
curious?
question. I know that that was something that actually was debated quite a bit in this
Yeah.
law. For the most recent version, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I know that we have an FAQ page on that that's available
Okay.
at our website.
Yeah, I didn't
That
mean to put you
particular
on this.
law, no, it's okay. That particular law was over 800 pages. So there's a lot of
Lots,
details and nuances. So it's
lot,
definitely prudent to make sure that you're looking at that closely and
yeah,
getting professional help when needed.
exactly. Thank you, Shannon. I didn't mean to put you on the spot on there. I was just curious. So what's your last tip that you would like to share that with all these changing, like you said, there's 800 pages on these changes, this one law. So it's really going to be a lot, this is just a very small piece that you're addressing right now. So,
Sure. So one question that I've been getting a lot lately is companies want to know the difference between a layoff and a furlough. So
mm-hmm.
lay off an employee, you terminate their employment, and then at that time they would be eligible for unemployment. But they would also lose health benefits and any other accrued benefits that they have, including vacation, California paid sick leave, etc. A furlough is a little different, and there's a few ways you can do a furlough. So, one furlough option might be that certain employees are working a reduced schedule because there's
Okay.
not as much work. But you can also be on an unpaid furlough where that employee is not receiving a paycheck because they're not doing any work, but
Mm-hmm.
are still technically an employee of the company and still eligible for accrued benefits like California paid sick leave, PTO, vacation, so they can supplement their income with um, those benefits. Still eligible to receive their health insurance through their employer, which is really important to a lot of people right now. And
Exactly.
in the state of California, because their income is significantly reduced being on an unpaid furlough, they're still eligible for unemployment. So some of
Oh,
our clients are opting for that unpaid furlough instead of the layoff as the official separation of the employer and the employee.
as far as the furloughs, is there a limitation on how long you could furlough somebody? Do you know?
I don't
Just
believe there
curious.
is. At some point, uh, an individual may want to just get their own job. Um,
Yeah.
Unemployment has been extended in many states, including California, so they can collect that for a longer period of time.
Thank you. That's a lot of information, and I know that you're really busy right now because, like you just mentioned, there's a lot of clients who need to get their information correct before they do some things, and also you have this 800 page law that just went into effect that you're trying to make sure you know all the details when you're guiding. your clients. So what do you do to kind of um, relax and stay centered and grounded?
That's a great question. It's very important that people take care of themselves during this difficult time, especially when things can get hectic and busy, and a lot of things are uncertain. But I really enjoy baking. It is one of my favorite hobbies to relax. So yesterday we made Rice Krispie treats. We've been making a lot of bread. I'm a big homemade cinnamon roll fan, so I
Oh,
think that's
wow.
next on my to-do list. And this weekend I'll be baking cookies with one of my nephews.
Oh, that's very sweet. I do
Remotely,
know
of course.
I do know that Shannon is really good at baking because I know she made some cupcakes for one of our events that we are part of a networking group, and they were amazing. So I think
Thank
you could
you.
host your own baking show at some point if you decide to have a, step away from something for a little bit or something.
In my free time.
In your free time, right? So, with that, I really appreciate you making time in such a busy, time. In a lot of us kind of wind down a little bit. I know there are others like you and other professionals who are really had to ramp up at this point. So, I appreciate you joining me for this interview, and maybe we will do one more later on after
Sure.
moving on with this. But thank you, Shannon. Thank you for joining me and giving all these steps. And I will put all that information, how to connect with Shannon and her firm, and the FAQ section of their firm for coronavirus and COVID-19. I will put that below on this video. And again, like I said in the beginning of the video, this is for informational purposes only. So if you have a specific question, please go see a qualified attorney in this area. And if you're in a different state, of course, there's state specific laws. So like Shannon was talking about California, other states have different type of laws. So you definitely want to check with the attorney that practices in your state and in the area that they practice. So thank you so much
Thank you
and
for
have
having me.
thank you. And I will see you in person, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So, uh, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.